following podcast contains real stories and raw conversations from first responders and military personnel. Some topics may be graphic or triggering. The views expressed by the host and the guests are their own and do not represent any agency or organization. Viewer discretion is advised.
All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Dispatch. We have Cindy, also Carrie's mother-in-law and
Yes, she
mother
is.
of Carrie's wife, a beautiful woman.
Well, I believe that makes a mother-in-law.
Right, so I want to make sure everyone knew.
They're doubly sure now.
That pesky mother-in-law.
Well, I don't think you're pesky. I think you're a wonderful person.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about yourself there, Cindy.
Okay. I am 57 years old, been doing nursing for 35 years.
35
Only
years.
and always forever in the operating room. Never touched any other department. Grew up in Walnut Creek, California, in a pretty waspy area. Back then it was there. I graduated with 900 people in my class, and there was one person that was black and 2 Asians.
Okay.
That was it. So real white neighborhood.
Okay.
Mom, dad, brother. I always said we were middle income. Apparently, we weren't. But it wasn't until, my dad was 40 years old that he finally made it big with his company. And
What'd your
So-
dad do?
I grew up, my dad worked for Payne Weber, which is now UBS.
Okay.
And he was a stockbroker.
Oh, nice.
And he brought his work home. Back then, nobody had cell phones. Nobody had beepers. Were you old enough to remember
I remember.
beepers?
My dad had one. I remember. And that's, in my eyes, I feel like you really don't realize how other family structures are until you get older in life. Because
Exactly.
I thought the same thing. Like, this is normal. And then when you
Yes.
start to meet other people, when you get older, when I went to the military, I'm like, wow, I was beyond lucky.
Well, I thought we had a really normal life. But then, like you said, growing up, you look back and for example, I came home from church camp one day, and the only reason I joined the church group was, God forgive me for this, they were going to the mountains, and I wanted a free trip to the mountains to go skiing.
At
So-
a young age, who doesn't want to go skiing? in the mountains?
Exactly.
For sure.
So sign me up for the church youth group.
Let's
So
go.
I came home from church youth group one day, and the back of our fence was wide open. And I thought, what the hell is going on? Okay, my dad had to get a satellite dish, not a dish like you see. What are they, 18 inches now for
Right.
TV?
I think I know what you're talking about.
This was, I think it's 12 feet across. I'm like, holy shit, Dad, what are you doing? But
Communicating
this was
with
normal.
NASA?
He had to have the toys. And we were at the bottom of a hill. So apparently everybody at the top of the hill is really pissed off because now they've got this eyesore when they look down. So after a little while, the neighborhood band together and decided, okay, nobody else gets to have one of these because they're such an eyesore, but Dad's got to keep his.
Oh, I love it.
Because whatever the rules were back then,
Right.
he was grandfathered into it. Another day, I came home from church camp again to find a huge semi. And I lived in suburbia,
Right.
nothing like out here. Everybody shared fence lines.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a huge truck that was backed onto the lawn, destroying Mom and Dad's pretty lawn. I thought, what the hell is going on? Dad decided he wanted to see if he could dig for a well. So,
Really?
yes, because he wanted a well so he could have a beautiful front yard.
Right. Because water's scarce in California.
Exactly.
That makes sense. Yeah.
And
So
they found water.
anytime, oh, did they really?
They did.
That's
So
awesome.
Mom and Dad have a well. So in California, you have nothing but drought.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no, not at the Carlson household. Everything
Grass
was
is green.
beautiful and green. And they literally had to have professional signs made and installed in their front yard that says, well, water in use.
Oh,
So
perfect.
nobody else could get pissed because their yard was green and everybody else in the neighborhood.
Oh, I'm sure because then they would have been calling the village or city,
Yes,
like
egged
XYZ.
the house, you name it.
So anytime you went to church camp and came back, you automatically
something.
expected
It
something.
was something. It
Some-
was always something.
I love it.
Yep. But
Love
otherwise, just, grew up in a normal house. I thought, I still do. I mean, you work hard, you play hard.
100%.
So,
And I think that's something anyone or everyone should live by is the amount of work you put in is what you get out of life in general.
and that's your liberal. Sorry. Had to add that.
100%.
No, but it's true. Work hard and you get the benefits of it.
100%.
So that's And that was pretty much the belief in our family. So dad worked super hard, brought his work home. Mom was an operating room nurse.
Okay.
And so, the little rebel side of me growing up was I knew the two things that I was never going to do, and that would be nursing and stockbroker.
Okay.
Because I was going to be my own person.
100%. So what shaped you as a young child or young teen, young
Probably just, mom and dad were really supportive. They were always, mom especially, because dad did a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
But mom was always there. She came to the sporting events. They kept us involved in groups. We were not allowed to get out of line.
Mm-hmm.
You just didn't. And
Right.
God forbid you said something to mom, dad, and maybe that was back then, because nowadays, if you were to spank your kid or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to have CPS on you.
I will tell you right now, that's not how my family rolled. It was, if we talked back to my mom, just like you said, just wait till your dad gets home. Or my mom would just my mom was 100% Italian, so she would handle it right then and there. And it was whatever she could grab, coat hanger, her hand, not in a malicious or mean way, but if I was disrespectful or my brother was disrespectful or my sister, she handled it. And I think that's what turned me into more of a disciplined person.
But you and I are,
Your mom
you're a generation
terrified
behind
me. Your mom terrified me.
Still to this day, my mom
I wouldn't cross Connie.
still terrifies me to this day.
But see, that's a different generation. You're behind me.
Right.
Like at least, what? Is
33?
it considered 2 generations?
I'm 33.
10 years is
Yeah.
a generation. So my generation, it wasn't like that. Dad, mom still had her say,
Mm-hmm.
but if I stepped out of line, wait till your father gets home kind of thing.
The belt's out and all that good stuff.
So the story my dad doesn't remember this, but 6 years old in first grade, and I called my mother a bitch. And
Oh, Cindy.
exactly. Yeah. Well, you don't do that, right? But and then I went to school. So I had to walk to school. It was about 2.5 blocks. My dad had already gone to work. That's why I could get away with calling my mom a bitch. I don't even remember what she did.
Mm-hmm.
So I walked to school, 2.5 blocks. What does that take? 20 minutes maybe?
Yeah, give
If
or
you're
take.
Kicking stones? I don't know. By the time I got to the school parking lot, my father had made it from downtown Walnut Creek to my school, which was about 7 or 8 miles, probably with, 6 or 8 traffic lights then.
Yeah.
He got to my school before I did and was waiting in the parking lot.
Ooh.
Which, not good, right?
No.
So when I get there, what does he do? He literally pulls my pants down in front of the entire school and spanks me, which was so, I still remember it like it was yesterday.
Right.
He doesn't remember doing that. He says it didn't ever happen. Like,
I bet you never called your mom a bitch again.
it did. Okay, so you try that on your kid today,
Oh,
you're going to go to jail.
jail.
You could, the hand is round to fit their ass.
Right. Well, as in law enforcement, I handled a few cases with what was it called now? Why am I blanking?
CPS?
Yeah, but we call it something different. But yeah, CPS.
What?
Child
Department of
Protective-
Child Protective Services.
Yes.
CPS.
Yeah, CPS. Sorry, I'm blanking. But yeah, so I've dealt with them numerous times, and I'm like, he didn't break a law. You're just disciplining your child. You didn't overstep any bounds. There's no welts or any, you didn't use, a log or a stick, and there's no bruising. Like there's no breaking of any law of disciplining your children.
Well, my son is a police officer now, and some of his toughest cases, he says, is having to deal with parents
Mm-hmm.
that you get to the house and you can see that these poor little kids are living in these,
It's heartbreaking.
awful environment, filthy, and they're bruised.
Yeah.
And he's brand new to this, and he's like, it's just heartbreaking.
It is, and the sad truth, and I don't want to tell you this, but that's going to be a lot of this career. And when I went into investigations, I found a lot of working with cases like sex crimes or crimes against children. It really broke me, and that's what plays a lot on my mind nowadays that I'm still dealing with, of these cases that I worked where it's sex crimes against children.
Oh.
It's the worst. It really
is the worst. Those little people don't deserve it.
No, because they're young, they're innocent, they don't know better, but it's people out there who should not be having children, have children, and they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, and that's in my career because pediatrics is totally separate.
Mm-hmm.
You don't necessarily. I worked at I worked at a big university hospital for a very brief time. And I did some pediatrics there, but not a lot.
Before we get to that, so that your father shaped you, your mother shaped you. So when did you get the nursing bug?
Okay, so I went to UC Davis.
Okay.
And I was just about 40 units shy of graduating, which is less than two. It was quarter system, so 2 quarters.
Gotcha.
And I was a biology major. So I had taken tons of classes that are nursing related. So here I am getting ready to graduate, Dom, and I'm like, what the fuck am I going to do with biology?
Right.
And it scared me because when you get out of school, like Dad says, you're on your own.
Right.
Okay. On my own, do what?
Right.
I'm not going to move home. I
Right.
need a career. So that's when I decided Mom really had a good career. She was home for the family. We had our meals on the table. She helped me with homework. She was very present. She only had to be on call. Maybe looking back, it was once every 2 weeks, which was nothing.
Right.
Why don't I just go into nursing? I like helping people. I like the human body.
Right.
But I'm not going to be a floor nurse. There's no way.
So your mom shaped you. That was like
My mom, yes. And then her sister, her baby sister, who's exactly 10 years older than me, was also a nurse, although she's out here in Illinois.
Okay.
So she didn't have a lot to do with me becoming a nurse, but there's nurses in the family.
Right.
And working with Mom, like at the dinner table, for example, she would come home and talk about her raw cases when I was a kid. And draw anatomy pictures so we knew what she was talking about. I'll never forget when she was talking about a woman and we had to take out we were doing a hysterectomy and had to take out her uterus, and she drew the fallopian tubes. So we're sitting at the dinner table eating, I don't know, probably steak.
Right.
And she's talking about blood and guts, drawing human anatomy pictures. And I thought it was totally exciting. But at the same time, I'm not going to be a nurse because I'm going to be
Your own person.
something other than what Mom and Dad want me to be.
Well, it sounds like you had a wonderful role model.
Yeah, Mom was fantastic.
Love it.
So yeah, that's just before graduation. I decided I needed to get my shit together because the party's coming to an end. So if I go into nursing, maybe I can make that party go a little longer.
Well, let's go. Buy yourself some time.
Well, all my credits didn't transfer.
Okay. Buy yourself a lot of time.
Yeah. Like organic chemistry, they could have cared less about that.
Right.
And thank you, Avery Wang, for getting me through organic chemistry.
Shout out.
Yeah. Shout out to Avery.
We love you, Avery.
Biggest nerd in the class. I literally walked into it 101, the chemistry class. And it's the biggest hall. It holds about 300 people. And I knew I never ever going to make it through organic chemistry, but I had to have it for my biology degree.
Right.
With whatever I was going to do. So I literally found the geekiest looking guy and sat next to him and said, we're going to be friends.
Best friends.
Best friends. So yeah, Avery. Thank you, Avery.
We love you. Listen, those nerdy friends are probably one of the best friends.
All I had to do back then was bat my eyes and sit next to him.
Fell in love.
We were in the same class where we had to do all the bullshit,
Right.
Anyway, so yeah, that's how I got through organic chemistry.
Love it.
And picking C on the final all the way down was how I passed organic chemistry. I'm not kidding you.
You and I took this.
I'm not kidding
You and I took tests the same way.
Yeah. But the problem is going to nursing school, there's no geeky dudes. It was basically all women when I went, which I don't like women.
You cheerleaded too, right? You were a cheerleader?
Yes. Yeah.
So,
okay.
I just like preluding to everything else, like kind of taught you like that team aspect, being a team member and stuff like that. But that also kind of like sitting next to the geekiest dude, you were cheerleader. So like,
I had it planned.
Yeah. I mean, what geeky dude isn't like, oh shit, that's a cheerleader.
Right.
Like,
Yeah. But the problem
you
is.
want the test answers? I'll give it to you.
I got you.
Yeah. When the class was done, I kind of felt bad for him because he really thought we were going to be.
Oh.
Yeah.
But you were friends with him.
No, not after.
Cindy.
Come on, you got to figure out how to play your cards, right?
You got to
figure out what's going to get you to where you need to be.
So talk to me about nursing school then.
Okay, so nursing school, I went to, it's St. Mary's. It's in Orinda. again, it's a private school. It's a Catholic school, and I am not a Catholic.
Okay.
So I had to take 3 classes on the actual campus,
About
which
religion.
I lived in Oakland at the time.
Okay.
The campus where I did my nursing was actually done at the hospital aspect of it. They had a dorm room. They had downtown Oakland. They have a dorm room. You do all your classes there. They have 3 different hospitals. They called it Pill Hill at the time,
Mm-hmm.
where we would do a lot of our clinical stuff. So, yeah, I grew up. I totally forgot the question. Lost my train of thought.
No, you're good.
So hold that thought.
Just about nursing school in general.
There you go. So nursing school. So I was there because I didn't have all the transferable credits,
Mm-hmm.
it took me another 2 years. So if you look at my degree to
Mhm.
get my bachelor's, my BSN in nursing, it took me 6 fucking years.
Worth it.
Okay, part of it is because going to St. Mary's,
Right.
I had to take classes like religion.
Right.
Why do I need religion
Things that have
to graduate?
nothing to do with your
I
career
had
path.
to take a Greek mythology. Okay, when I was in
Silly.
high school, I blew out my knee
Mm-hmm.
and I was out of school for about 6 weeks while I was having this huge recovery. That was when we did Greek mythology in high school. So I thought I dodged the bullet when I graduated high school. So here I go to college and I have to take Greek mythology for
Oh.
nursing.
Gross.
So yeah, that was awful.
It's disheartening, right? In a sense where you have your career path planned out. You're excited for that career path. You're excited for those classes that are going to teach you about your career path. And then they put you on a whole different path of like,
Stupid.
let's take five classes that are going to cost you thousands of dollars, and you're not going to use any of it for your career
Exactly.
the rest of your life.
It's stupid.
And I think that's why maybe a portion of the education system is a little bit broken, but that's a whole nother conversation for a whole nother day.
That's another podcast.
It is really.
Well, the other thing is with nursing, you can actually do a 2-year program to get your AA degree.
Okay.
And then you
For
can,
those that don't know, what's AA degree?
it's an associate degree.
Gotcha.
Like anything else, 2 years to get it, but you still have to pass your state boards to
Right.
get your license.
Right.
And looking back, and I don't know about Illinois, but in California, it doesn't matter if you have an AA, a BSN, a master's, the pay is the pay.
Crazy.
So we're unionized in California. Most,
Thank God.
yeah. Well, I
You
don't
don't like
know.
the union? I like it in
think-
some aspects. There are some downsides to it, but at the same time, for protection when they come after you for some BS.
Well, I
They-
think
they
in
step
my
up, hopefully.
yes and no. I have had experience with the union where I've needed them, and it got to a point where they said, "We cannot afford this. We're done."
Oh, that's the downside.
And it's like, what?
That's a down. So I think it also depends on the strength of your union.
But it was supposed to be a very strong union.
That's sad.
Yeah, it was terrible.
That's where it fails
so
you.
I think, in my opinion, the union protects the weak guy who does a shitty job
Right.
and slacks off, and then the union comes in and fixes it for him.
Right. But then not protect somebody who actually put
Has
in
a loud mouth.
a lot. Well, that too, Cindy, but also puts a lot of work in. You did, if they were to accomplish a lot and they're, before being hired with degrees, and then you're saying if someone has an associate's degree and you went through 6 years of school, you're
Yeah.
being paid the same. That's not fair.
Yeah,
That's not fair.
it's terrible.
It's
I
also very dependent on the union. I mean, like you went through a change in union,
Oh yeah.
things like that. Like, not to like knock unions by any way,
Any
shape, or
means.
form. Like, it's really dependent on what union you're a part of.
Right. Agreed.
Well, and I was actually a shop steward for the first union that I was in, but that was basically for my benefit.
Right.
Because that way I had a direct phone line and I could call people immediately with issues.
Right.
But like I said earlier, I tend to have a very black and white approach to things, and you know exactly where you stand with me.
I actually find that very refreshing, as you and I talked about earlier. I'd rather you be upfront, and not just blow smoke up my ass, for lack of better terms.
Right. So looking back on it, although I never needed the union for that part of it, my mouth probably would have gotten me fired had I
Right.
not had a union to protect me. But it never came to the point that I needed the union. But
Right.
again, yeah, I probably would have lost it. Let's see, I've had 4 or 5 different jobs in my life. I probably would have lost 4 or 5 jobs in my because of my mouth.
So tell me about your early nursing career then. Any
So-
memorable stories?
Yeah, well, yes. I only went into nursing knowing I was going to go into the operating room.
Mm-hmm.
When I was 6 years old, I went to Take Your Daughter to Work Day. I don't know if you guys have that out here.
I've heard of it. I don't think I've ever been.
No? Take your kid to work.
I know
So
what
they
you're talking about.
basically get to shadow you for the however long the boss is going to let your kids be there.
Mm-hmm.
So I did go to work with my mom when I was 6 years old. And I remember getting there. We put our lunch in the lounge refrigerator.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to see a couple different cases. One of them was a cataract case.
Okay.
And back then they used to cut the eyelashes.
Mhm.
And all I remember is they took what looked like a crochet hook and put what looked like a shoestring around what I know are the 4 muscles of your eyes, so they
Right.
could rotate the eye. And this patient happened to be, keep in mind, it was 6. I think he was like 350 pounds, maybe 8 feet tall. That's what I remember him.
Right.
He certainly wasn't.
As a 6-year-old, absolutely. Right.
But he was a huge black guy. And with the way they were moving his eyes, he followed me the whole case. Freaked me out. To this day, I cannot do eye surgery. That is-
Really?
I will do anything but eye surgery.
Right.
It's
Well,
disgusting.
for him, right? He's like, why is there a 6-year-old?
Well, he was asleep.
Oh,
He was actually asleep. And
crazy.
I was just allowed to watch it.
Okay.
So to this day, I have made it very clear. I do not do eyes. I don't intend to learn. You put somebody else in the room.
Scarred you.
So the second case I saw that day was an amputation
Mm-hmm.
of a lower leg.
Oof.
And again, looking back, all I remember is they chopped the leg off,
Mm-hmm.
put it in what looked like a hefty garbage bag, which it is. It's just a big
100%.
garbage bag. They wrapped it up on the field, and then they handed it to me and said, "Can you go put this in the refrigerator?"
A 6-year-old. Can you imagine handing Luca a leg in a garbage bag? I can't.
It's just part of their life, right? It's just what they do.
To them,
and-
it means nothing because it's their day-to-day, right? But
Exactly.
to me, who's in law enforcement, that's obscene.
Yes. Well, the joke was I only knew of the refrigerator, not for pathology. Nobody had showed me that.
Mm-hmm.
I knew the refrigerator where my lunch was. So I took it into the nurse's lounge and put it in that refrigerator. But I had to, you got to make room. You got a big leg, and I don't know how many people with their lunches. There's no room in there. So it wasn't until the end of the day when pathology came up to get all the specimens, and they had the missing leg. And they asked me what I did, and I said, I put it in the fridge. No, you didn't. I put it in the fridge. No, you didn't. Where's the leg? And I took them to the refrigerator. And that was the joke. They all said, we know she's going to be a surgical nurse someday.
Why is there leg juice on my sandwich?
It's gross. I mean,
That's probably one of the best stories I've heard in a long time. Cindy, that was
but
phenomenal.
It's true. It's absolutely true. So yes, going into nursing. I knew that I didn't want to be on the floors. I knew I didn't want to deal with patients. I saw what it was like at a very young age. Put the patient to sleep. They turn on the music.
Right.
As soon as the patient's asleep, the surgery goes, and you're talking about your family, your friends, what you did
Right.
on the weekend,
Bullshitting.
hobbies,
Yeah.
bullshitting.
Yeah,
And then if the shit hits the fan, which sometimes
it does. Yeah.
then everybody comes back to the moment and you're 100% back at work.
That's relatable. I mean, that's the same thing with us, right? We handle our calls in certain ways, or if it's a DOA, I think it's a way of kind of dealing with that trauma in that moment, right? Where it's, you take your mind off of what's actually happening so it doesn't affect you later down the road, and you joke, you laugh. It's nothing demeaning or rude towards that person. It's just our way of coping with those
Totally.
type of things.
Yep.
That's an awesome story.
Yeah.
First of all, shame on them for giving a 6-year-old a leg and be like, just go put it in the fridge, not, hey, go down the hall, take a left, and then that's the fridge you want to put
Yeah.
it in. So shame on them.
Well, and nowadays, there's no way in the world that we would let somebody's kid come in the operating room.
Right.
I mean, even when we have some of the surgeons say, oh, my son is home from med school and he's going to follow me today. Oh, they've got to jump through hoops to get him.
Right.
And
rightfully so.
yeah. And
Yeah. Well, Maybe
I
maybe
don't
not
know.
a 6-year-old.
The other thing is that the operating room is a completely different environment from any other part of the hospital. You go in, the doors close, and nobody comes in your department.
Mm-hmm.
There have been cases where I actually was called to a trauma. So when they call a trauma into the hospital, like you do, we're bringing in a blah, 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 whatever the case may be. The hospital announces that there's a trauma. They describe it. And then everybody that's on the trauma team has to go there. So you've got somebody from radiology, blood bank, OR, you name it. So I was on my way out the door that day.
Right.
So I didn't have on my scrubs and I didn't have on my bouffant hat or my mask. I just looked like a normal civilian, which was fine because 98% of them are clear. You walk in,
right.
You know, the guy fell off a ladder, whatever, big deal. By definition, it's a trauma. But there's nothing he's not coming to surgery. You're out of here.
Right.
So I went to that particular trauma, and this was one of those cases where I remember it was horrible. When I walked into the room, the patient was laying down. So I walked in on the left side of his body, and he was awake and he was talking. And I'm like, okay, I'm out of here. He's fine. But I'd never seen it before. He was in one of these body suits that applies pressure. You inflate it from the outside. Like it's a huge tourniquet for the entire body.
Right.
And I didn't know what was going on. And as soon as they deflated that, that's when the blood just poured out of him.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't know. I'm like, he's talking. What are we doing? Well, the poor guy had fallen into a cement mixing truck that was standing up.
Oh.
Everybody thinks it's just a big bowl.
Right.
But there's blades in it, just like your blender.
Yeah.
And so this guy fell in. One of those blades took half his body, half the right side of his body. And there was no way he was going to survive it. But he was alive because of that device.
Wow.
So anyway, here I am in my normal clothes.
Thinking it's just another walk in the park.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Go home. And of course, then the doctor starts telling, you do this, you do this, you do this. He points at me and he told me to do something, and I go to do that. Then the trauma doctor was right behind me, and he literally grabbed me by the shoulder. And this is the doctor I've worked with for 7 years. Like, what the hell are you doing? And I turned around. He's like, who are you? Like, Dr. So-and-so. And I literally put my hands to my eyes like this, because that's all you get to see.
Yeah, that's how he knows you.
Like, it's Cindy. And he goes, oh my God, I didn't recognize you.
Wow. Yeah.
So that it's weird. We're in our own little world. Nobody recognizes us outside the department. Even if you go to another department, if you have your bouffant hat on, they're going to recognize you as OR.
The bouffant hat is like that surgical hat, right?
Yeah.
You're talking about? Okay.
Yeah. They're going to recognize you as being from the OR, but as soon as you take it off, nobody knows who the hell you are.
That's crazy.
It's a little world of its own.
Right. And what point of your career was that? Was that early on? Was that mid-career, later on?
So right from the beginning when I was in my nursing program, the January for your senior year, so for me, the second year, the month of January was an elective case where you would be plugged into a particular department for a whole month.
Okay.
And you got to sign up for what you wanted.
Right.
I missed the sign up. I have no idea how. Maybe it was Christmas time. And so when I got back, January 2nd, I was assigned to a med-surg floor. It's like, oh, hell no. No.
So for those that don't know, what's a med-surg floor?
Well, that's just pushing pills. And I mean, that's probably going to piss somebody off. It's taking care of the sick patient on the floor.
Okay. But that's not your cup of tea. That's why you didn't want to do that. Right.
Med-surg is like your basic floor rooms.
Okay.
Medical and surgical patients.
Okay. So kind of just like general pop in a sense.
Yeah, kind of like general pop in a sense.
Gotcha.
Yeah, the guy that comes in sick, feels crappy, and they're going to put him on the floor to monitor him overnight, whatever.
And that's not what you wanted to do with your career.
God, no.
You were more interested in, what was your choice?
I only wanted operating room.
Right.
And it was probably because that's what Mom did.
Right. And you wanted the action.
I don't want to talk to the family. I don't want to hear their story. I don't care about that. In the operating room, it's like, shop. You come in with a problem, we fix it, we send you on.
You were business. That's you didn't want to do like the bedside manner of it. You were your interest was the
fixing.
business. Yes, that's what your mindset
Just want
was
to
towards.
fix it.
Right.
And
Which
so
you need somebody for everything. Absolutely.
well, yeah, they want to put me on med-surg, and
Okay.
I threw a fit. And then Abby, rest her soul, bitch.
We don't like
She
you,
told
Abby.
me, she didn't like Abby. She told me you missed the sign up, and we had an opening on med-surg, and here my other girlfriends are going to the emergency room, they're going to the ICU, they get to go where they want. So I called in sick the next day, just said I couldn't do that. I didn't feel well, and I went to different hospitals in the Bay Area pleading with them to let me do an operating room experience.
Gotcha.
So I found a facility that actually the manager in that department knew my mother from working with her from several years prior.
Yeah.
And I told her, I said, I want to do my senior elective. You have me for 5 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And after 5 weeks, if you like what I do and I fit in here, because you need nurses in the operating room, they had a board filled with needing nurses specific to the OR. I said, and then if you like what I do, then I want you to give me a job.
Right.
Which is what a senior elective generally turns into.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, well, that would be wonderful, but we don't partner with your school.
Oh.
And I said, okay, that's fine. We're going to figure out how to partner with the school. So I did talk to one of the chiefs at the school and said, listen, I have this opportunity. They're willing to do it. I don't know what you need to do, but let's make it happen.
Right.
The next day I was in the OR at
you.
this particular hospital.
A freaking problem solver here.
Little bitch.
Let's go. No, I don't think so, because it was, you saw something you wanted and that's what you wanted and you made it happen. I don't see anything wrong with that.
That's kind of every way in my life. If there's something that I want,
You're passionate.
you got to go for it.
Right. Because if not, what would have happened? You would have been in the general prop or somewhere you were unhappy, and then you're not going to enjoy your career. So
Well,
I praise you for that. That's awesome.
Thank you. The other thing is, if I did that med-surg, I would never, ever, ever have gotten into an OR.
And look at you
Ever.
now. And then are you happy with your career? Now, looking
Oh,
back,
Yeah.
you did the right thing.
Yeah, I love what I do.
Good.
But I'm getting tired of it.
Yeah.
I'm getting
You wanna-
old.
You want to enjoy life now.
Yeah, I do. I want to enjoy my grandkids.
You got beautiful grandbabies. Absolutely. No one would blame you for that.
And
she
another one.
she
on
doesn't
the-
want to enjoy her
I
life.
have-
She wants to mow the lawn at the golf course.
That is my dream job.
Mowing the lawn?
Okay,
Cindy,
so
I have a tractor. I'm on an acre. Anytime you feel like you want to mow,
Well,
you're in, girl.
even at my son-in-law's house, Carrie's house, I see his little tractor, and it's like,
Let's go.
I'm not kidding you. I get
You
so
get excited?
excited.
Oh, my God.
Dude,
Let's
she's-
fire this bad boy up.
She's so mad that it's winter right now because that was like one of the first times she came out in the summer. She's like, "Can you teach me how to mow your lawn on the tractor?" I was like, "Yeah, sure, go for it." And I like didn't turn on the blade, and she's like, "Wait, I was just doing that for nothing." I'm like, "All right, go. I'll turn it on. Go around."
Yeah,
there."
you can cut it.
Well, and the other thing is they've got these plants on one side of their lawn.
Right.
So I've seen Carrie destroy some of those plants by getting too close with the blades.
Right.
So here I am, I'm mowing his lawn. I'm thinking, look at me, I'm not even killing any of these little
Just-
plants.
Just driving around.
I didn't know that it wasn't mowing, but it was just, yeah. And Carrie said I didn't turn on the blades. I'm like, what? No, that's my dream job, though. my happy place is outside.
I love it. In the sun.
In the sun, it can be your yard, my yard,
peaceful.
anybody's garden. I mean, I go down my block and I trim their
Yeah.
roses.
Love it. You're a sweet woman.
But I want to be the gardener at the country club.
Good.
Yeah.
I don't
You
see.
think I can do that, Carrie?
100%. I think so. We'll make it happen for you. I'll make a few calls. We'll figure it out.
Hey,
I love-
after this episode, she's gonna get that job.
100%. Hey, guys. We know the sacrifices first responders and military personnel make on an everyday basis. That's why we're thrilled to partner with Mike Anderson Chevrolet to bring you an incredible offer.
Mike Anderson Chevrolet is showing their gratitude by offering exclusive deals just for you. Whether you need a rugged truck, a fuel-efficient sedan, or an SUV built for adventure, they've got something to fit your lifestyle.
Here's what they're offering. Special pricing for military members, and first responders. Exclusive financing options, extra rebates, and incentives.
Your hard work and dedication deserve to be rewarded. Visit Mike Anderson Chevrolet today. Drive off in a vehicle that's as reliable and hardworking as you are.
And as soon as you walk into that showroom, let them know Andrew sent you. Because at Mike Anderson, your family.
For more details or to schedule your test drive, contact Mike Anderson Chevrolet, proudly supporting our heroes because you deserve the best.
So I just stuck myself in the OR and I never left.
And never left?
They hired me on.
Okay.
And I finished school. I
Okay.
had to graduate. Then I took my state boards.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing about the state boards is when I took my state boards, you had everything nowadays is computerized, right? Well, for us, it was handwritten bubbles.
Right.
So you filled out the paperwork and then they would mail you, it was like 6 to 8 weeks before you got your results.
Okay.
Well, when I applied for my boards, I lived at address A.
Mm-hmm.
But when I took my boards, I had moved, so I had to change the address. So there were 2 girls that were working as an IP, which is an interim permit, somebody waiting for the results.
Gotcha.
And everything is based on seniority. And Clarita was her name. Clarita got her results, and they kept asking me, did you get your results? I'm like, no. Did you get your results? No. And it went on like this for weeks.
Wow.
And they were sure that I had failed my boards and I was just bullshitting and trying to carry on as though I had
were you
my
panicking?
license. I was panicking.
Right.
So I drove up to Sacramento because I couldn't get through to a person to say, where the hell is my license? My other person got theirs 3 or 4 weeks ago. And it was all because I changed my address that they didn't want to mail them out.
Oh,
And nobody
man.
had cell phones. So you didn't get a phone call. There was nothing. There was no email back then.
Yeah.
That's how old I am.
Oh, well, you're not that old, but
So yes, so I
had-
got my license.
I had
and-
something similar to that to happen to me. I went to the police department and they never told me I passed the board for law enforcement. And I did the same thing. I thought I failed. I was like, I'm an idiot. I'm so dumb. And I went up to the commander's office and I was like, hey, did we pass? He goes, oh, yeah, we got your results weeks ago. I was like, oh, thanks for letting
But they
me
couldn't
know.
tell you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Meanwhile,
Oh.
you're stressing out thinking, what am I going to do with my next career? Because obviously I'm not going to be a police officer.
Dad's going to be
Yes,
pissed.
I know. Exactly.
That's what
Now
you're thinking.
what?
So let me give you, so you then went straight into the OR, right?
Straight into the OR.
So let me give you a hypothetical, not hypothetical, something happened to me. So you get a police officer that has a gunshot wound to the
Oh,
face.
that's not hypothetical. I've done that.
What would you, so for my situation, I'm coming in, I lost a shit ton of blood and I'm bleeding out and I probably have like 20 minutes. That's what they told me. I had 20 minutes to live. What would you do?
Oh, well, am I meeting you in the emergency room?
Yes,
Where-
the officers are bringing me in to the
Okay,
ER.
so they bring you into the ER and we show up for your kind of a trauma.
Right?
And the first thought for me at this point in my career is, who is that son of a bitch that shot a police officer? Because like I said, my son is now a police officer. So I have a much, I don't know how to say it, but I have a bigger place in my
Viewpoint.
heart.
Right. Okay.
Only because it's family now, right?
Right.
So
It's
every day my
personal to
son
you.
goes to work, if I text him anything, I always say, be safe
Right.
or something. And I think of you actually
Oh.
because of what you went through.
Yeah.
Because you're the one police officer that I have more of a connection with rather than just that police officer that I
Right.
worked on.
Right.
So they bring you into the ER and now I'm pissed because it's a police
Rightfully
officer,
so.
right?
Rightfully
You
so.
shouldn't be going after cops
Right.
or anybody that's doing, I mean, it's okay to shoot up the people that you have a problem with. Let the gangs fight each other out.
Right.
Just don't bring them to the hospital, right?
Right.
I don't care about those people.
You're a mama bear, Cindy. You're a mama bear. I love it. So how would you handle my case?
So your case coming in would be, first of all, obviously we're giving you blood. We're making sure you've got an airway. It would have been called into the operating room immediately.
Mm-hmm.
That's, like I said, everybody shows up from the different departments.
Right.
But as soon as we identify the patient as being a surgical case, it's instantly called down, open up room 3. We've got, in your case, we probably would have set it for a craniotomy.
Mm-hmm. Which is, for people that don't know.
Brain surgery.
Okay.
Yeah, because if it's the face, frequently you get the the
Goes out.
stuff that blows part of the head off
Right.
and goes into the brain. And those, I've worked on those cases.
Oh,
They're
crazy.
awful.
Right.
Bloody. The face is completely mangled. You're
Oh.
trying to figure out, often you're trached in the field
Mm-hmm.
if you've had a gunshot to the face because there's no way to intubate with all the trauma in the face and
Right,
the
right, right.
swelling. You can't even see which body parts, you got to get into the right part. You can't, it's important.
Right.
So frequently they're trached in but 20 minutes to live, that's not a lot of time.
No.
So people are pumping blood into you.
They did.
And at the same time, they're giving you a catheter into your bladder. Somebody's, making everybody's drawing blood work so we can try to get some kind of a baseline.
Mm-hmm.
But I would imagine in your case, you weren't in the ER long before they sent you to the operating room.
I don't remember. I was asleep.
Yeah, but when you woke up, did you hear any stories about it?
No, so I didn't have to go through surgery. So when the bullet went in, it went in just below my jaw, went through my throat, hit my hyoid bone, hit my C5, fractured my C5, severed my vertebral artery, and then exited out my back right shoulder. But I don't think they knew that at the time. They just saw that I was losing a shit ton of blood. I think that's a medical term, right?
Oh my God.
Shit ton of blood. And I remember before losing consciousness in the ER on the table, they said, "Get me O negative now."
Oh, yeah.
And in my concussion state, I'm thinking,
Oh, shit.
I'm O positive, I'm O positive, I'm O positive.
Oh, you were there.
Right. But all that was coming out was, so I was in the right state of mind of knowing that's universal.
Yes, it is universal. And we do that all the time. I work in a lot of cardiac. I don't want to say I specialize in cardiac, but I'm one of 4 people in the department that does cardiac.
Okay.
So we've used tons of O negative blood.
Right.
We've gotten to the point where you actually at some point run out of O negative blood.
I bet.
I mean, if you think about it, the hospital can only store so much blood.
Right.
So then they start calling the Red Cross. And then they start calling other hospitals, trying to get whatever blood. And if you run out of O negative blood, you're like, okay, well, send us whatever you've got. And
Please.
in trauma, you can actually change somebody's blood type.
Really? I wonder if mine changed.
By giving, if you're O positive and they're going to give you nothing but O negative, which I don't know how many units you got.
4 bags, they said. I read the medical report. It said 4 bags of O negative.
Well, and there's 7 bags, the equivalent of 7 bags in an adult human.
Wow.
So it'd be interesting to see if you're still O positive.
Look at that. This is actually, ladies and gentlemen, we were doing it. This is a learning session
Biology.
as well.
This is where my biology classes came in. No, but you literally can. I mean, if you're going to save somebody's life, sometimes blood is blood.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
I'm here today, so it worked.
Go get your blood type done.
You know what? I'm interested now.
I can't imagine with 4 units it would be enough to change you because you're bleeding, but it still would be kind of interesting. Yeah.
All right. So on that note, we're going to take a quick break.
All right. Well, back from break. So there is a question I wanted to ask you. And I've heard from a little bird that you always kind of are very interested in being a flight nurse. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
It was brief. So yes, once I started doing the OR, and it was just something that, you want to branch out, you want to see what else is out there. What can you experience besides the day in and day out?
Well, the OR is super exciting. That sounds really exciting too. So that's probably what drew you to it.
Exactly. But then I have a husband who didn't want me to do that because when he was in utero, his father was killed in a helicopter crash.
It's a decent reason.
The idea of me being in a helicopter transporting organs or being out in the field to pick up traumas, he was adamantly against it. So I had 2 options: do it or stay with my husband. Don't do it or stay with my husband. He wouldn't let me do it.
There's some days you probably wish you would have done it.
Yeah. Looking back on it, would I change my mind? No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't dare.
No, you got 2 beautiful children out of it. I don't blame you.
Talking with some people about it when I was younger, and I told them, I did talk to some of the flight nurses, and I got the information that I needed, and what do I need to do this? How do I go about? And I got a lot of help from them. And then I presented it to my husband, and it was an instant, no, you're not doing that. So then, of course, in the next time I see some of these nurses or EMTs or whoever were the flight crew, and they're like, Cindy, what'd you think about it? Are you going to? And I said, my husband's against it. I can't do it.
Oh,
Okay, back then, we kind of just listened to our husband.
right.
I probably would still listen to him today, but I would maybe push
A little
harder for what I
Right.
wanted.
Right.
I don't regret not doing it because from that point on, I figured out, okay, so what more can I do?
Mm-hmm.
That's when I went into trauma. I decided I need to leave the facility that I'm at.
Right.
I had been there for 7 years. The same people, the same surgeons. You do the same stuff. Every day is different because every patient's a little different, but it still became a little monotonous.
Right.
So I was young, and I decided to transfer and go to another facility in the Bay Area, and only go there because they did trauma. And so I got on the trauma team, and the problem with that is there's so much call hours that you work your 40 hours, plus you're on call starting at 11 o'clock at night until your shift starts at 7:30 in the morning.
Oh.
And being on trauma, what it means is the hospital has, you always have to have a crew available for trauma. So as soon as the trauma team is working, you have to call in another team to basically, I don't want to say stand there and do nothing.
Right.
They become active in the trauma that's going, because if there's another trauma, then that trauma team has to go take care of that trauma patient.
Right.
And then you have to call in 2 more people who could be available potentially for the next trauma.
Oh, wow.
So there was way too many hours.
Yeah.
But it was exciting when I was young and I had the energy.
Okay.
And a lot of people thought it was stupid to go to this particular hospital because the hospital, when I went there, was on the chopping block from the state. It was going to be shut down
Okay.
for earthquake precautions. And they had to come up with who knows how many hundreds of millions of dollars to redo the entire hospital
Wow.
to make it earthquake safe
Wow.
or close. And so
Yeah.
I was there for 7 years, and then they shut the doors and threw us all out.
Oh, man.
But it was 7 fun years. It was exciting.
So what like a memorable story from when you were working trauma at that hospital? What would be one that comes to mind?
There's so many.
Oh, I bet.
I mean, I'll start with the one that really broke my heart was, it was a young couple. The father or the husband and wife, they were divorcing. They were in
Okay.
the middle of a really bitter divorce. And I guess they had a judge tell them, you get the child this many days or hours or, visitation rights, whatever they were. So we were called to a trauma, and it was a little girl. She was 4 years old. And keep in mind, we don't do pediatrics.
I don't like where this is going.
I know.
I don't like
Well, that's
it.
just it. The kid cases are the ones that stick with me
Forever.
the most.
Yeah.
So this particular case, she was 4 years old, and it was late in the evening. So she was curled up in her car seat up against the door, sound asleep, minding her own business. And dad was returning the daughter to the mother.
Mm-hmm.
In the process, the car was T-boned, and it smashed into the little girl that was sleeping on the side of the bed.
Oh, my God.
So, of course, she was a mess. As the double doors opened and we are wheeling this poor little child into the operating room, I will never forget the husband and the wife on the outside of the doors yelling at each other. The wife was saying, if you hadn't messed around with so-and-so, we wouldn't be divorcing, we wouldn't be here. And then, if you had brought her back 2 hours ago like you were supposed to, we wouldn't be here. And so that's happening as the doors are closing. We take her in the room. The case was horrible. I'll never forget this cold-hearted trauma doctor. And we worked on her for about 2.5 hours before she died.
Oh, my God.
And there were so many women in that room, nurses. The anesthesiologist was a woman. The only man in the room was the trauma doctor.
Yeah.
So as we were coding her and it had gone on, she died.
Mm-hmm.
And the doctor literally just kind of threw his hands up and he's like, all right, let's call it. Well, at that point, every one of the women in the room started bawling.
Yeah.
It was horrible.
Rightfully so.
And this son of a bitch, I would love to say his name just to get it out there, but I won't. He literally stops dead in his tracks, spins around, and he says, ladies, this is trauma. Get over it. And I lost it. I'm like,
Good.
you son of a bitch.
Good.
This is somebody's baby girl. This is their daughter. She's 4 years old. How can you be so cold? This is trauma. Get over it. And I just, how any physician, how any human could get so
Calloused.
stone cold, just callous,
Yeah.
and just not see the person behind what we just did
Right.
and how it's going to affect those two, just not just mom and dad, but grandma, grandpa, the cousins. Maybe she has other brothers or sisters. Who knows?
Right. But even like everyone in that OR at that moment, all
Bawling.
those women, you are affecting those people as well.
At Beyond the Dispatch, we're all about supporting those who serve, whether on the streets or on the battlefield. That's why we're excited to share the life-saving resource, the QRF Up app.
QRF Up is a free app designed specifically for service members and first responders. If you're in crisis, all it takes is one tap of the SOS button. Within moments, you'll be connected with a licensed therapist who will stay on the line with you until a response team can reach you on the very same day.
No more waiting days for help when you need it the most. QRF Up app has partnered with multiple organizations to offer a variety of treatment options tailor-made for what works best for you.
If you or someone you know could benefit from this incredible service, please download the QRF Up app today. Share it with your community. Let's make sure no one has to face their toughest moments alone.
QRF Up app is also looking for dedicated individuals to serve on the response team. Launching nationwide May of 2025, together we can make a difference.
For more information on becoming a team member, visit qrfup.org. That's www.qrfup.org. Or visit the App Store to download their app.
Let's save some lives.
You talked about those cases and, you know, your aspect of it. How did that shape you, like, going forward? Like, as a mother, how did those things affect you? Because I know we've had conversations. I've had conversations with my wife about it, how they kind of shaped you. But, like, how did it like change your outlook, right? Because you see that stuff and it affects you in a way.
It does.
Yeah.
It does.
Like, how did that change your outlook on life?
Well, gosh, Carrie, that's a hard question.
Mm-hmm.
The easy answer is it really makes you wonder how people can be so cold-hearted.
Right.
And so I don't know if it makes me a better person or a meaner, angrier person. As a nurse, I have to take care of the patient, but I have two kinds of cases that I can say, I don't do this.
Mm-hmm.
Abortions are one of them, and transgender reassignment is another one.
Right.
So I years and years ago, I was fine being the nurse for abortions.
Mm-hmm.
But then I had a situation where it was a horrible case and it totally changed my mind as a nurse. I will no longer do abortions. Now, if you want an abortion, I'm all for it.
Mm-hmm.
You can have it, just don't let me be a part of it.
Right. And that's I feel like that's perfectly fine. If you as a person do not believe in that, then I don't think anyone can fault you for that.
But it's not even believing in it. I'm not pro-life. I'm not out there saying you can't have an abortion or, you know, it's a baby, you can't kill it.
Right.
That's okay. You can have your abortion. I am totally
Okay.
on board with you getting your abortion.
Right.
If that's what you choose, if you can live with yourself, that's your choice.
But you don't
I'm
want to be the person responsible for
But
it.
I am not going to be in the room to be a part of it. And that goes back to a case where I thought the girl was coming in for a C-section,
Mhm.
and this lady was actually coming in for an abortion.
Okay.
She was that far along.
Oh God.
And to this day, and this was probably when I was only 4 or 5 years into my nursing.
Mm-hmm.
To this day, I could tell you the patient's name, the surgeon's name, the room I was in. I can tell you everything about that case, but she was so far along that it wasn't just an abortion because I could make out a human body when it was all said and done.
Oh, that's heartbreaking.
And I couldn't, it just ripped me up.
Especially as a mother, yeah.
I believe you told me that was your job to make out that body, correct?
Yeah, I literally had to pour the contents of this specimen
Well,
onto a towel and puzzle this little person together
right.
to make sure we got all the body parts.
Oh.
And it was, I literally through tears, it just was like such an awakening moment
Yeah.
because mostly when you do an abortion, all you see when you're done is a suction bucket
Mm-hmm.
of what just looks like bloody substance. There's nothing there.
Right. Not this case.
Oh, this case was horrible.
And that,
Oh, Cindy.
So after that, I said never, ever, ever.
I don't think
again.
anyone can
That's-
fault you for that.
that's the things you have to carry with you, right? Like,
It haunts me, Carrie.
yeah.
I mean, so for years, if they would say, you're going, here's your assignment for the day, and you get your lineup, I'd say, okay, the third case, you're going to have to get somebody else in there. I don't do abortions.
Good for you. Good for you for standing up for yourself.
Okay. And they're very accommodating. I've never, ever had any pushback.
Amazing.
And at the
Good.
facility I'm at now, because we're no longer a Catholic hospital, we're a
Mhm.
community hospital, I think there's only one, possibly two nurses in my department of maybe 20 of us
Mhm.
that will
Do that.
do an elective abortion.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's like you're gonna have to go.
That's
Sorry.
hard. That's
Yeah.
hard. And you said you're fine with if that's people's decision, but that's not for you. And I get that because I don't know if I could do that either.
No.
And that would be hard for me, and that would play on my mindset for the rest of my life too. So good for you for realizing that.
Yep. Not gonna be it. The other one is that whole transgender
Yeah.
crazy stuff. I mean, I never, ever, ever thought it would somehow or another affect me. Like, I don't care if you're a man and you want to be a woman in your mind, or you're
Yeah,
a woman.
You're an
I'm-
adult.
Who cares?
Make your own decisions. Yeah.
Okay, but all of a sudden we're getting these teenagers.
Right.
Let's see. Let me stop and think. I always have trouble thinking of, is a transgender a boy to a girl or a girl to a boy? Well, Megyn Kelly cleared it up. Anytime you see trans, think fake.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's transgender woman, it's a fake woman. So it's a dude that wants to be a woman.
Right.
Okay. We are getting all of these transgender men. So they're women, born women, who are now coming in. They've had their hormone therapy. They look like you. They've got beards,
Right.
hairy chest,
Right.
and breasts. And we're going to do a bilateral mastectomy on them.
I love hairy breasts.
You pervert.
Do you like hairy chests with breasts?
No, I just like hairy breasts.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Each to their own, Carrie. I'll mention that to Lauren when I see her. How's that? No, but it's just it's so confusing for me as a nurse.
Right.
And some of the nurses in my department go, Cindy, you're a nurse. You should be able to do this. And it's like, I could probably do it, but I also don't know how to greet the patient. You know, it's a woman that goes by the name, I don't know, pick a name, John.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm looking at a woman. I
Right.
can't call you John when
Right.
all the paperwork says Mary, for example. And the first case I did, what did they say? You misgendered me?
Yeah, misgendered. Yeah.
And to say they, when it's a single person, it's like in English, I was corrected on that.
Right.
It's singular.
It's your personal beliefs, and that's how you feel. So I get that aspect of it where you want to put yourself in that position to deal with it. And if that's their right to do that to themselves, it's your right as well as a professional to not deal with those cases. And there's people out there that will, and you're just not one of them. And I get that. And
Yep.
you have your own personal beliefs, and I don't think anyone can fault you for that.
Well, some of the nurses in my department don't like that I don't do it because then they get stuck doing it. But you know what?
That
I'll
is what it
go
is.
send me to another room.
Right.
Anything but an eyeball, I will do.
Right. So let's get into the meat and potatoes of your career.
So predominantly cardiac is where I like to, that's my comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
I started that when I was probably 2 years into nursing, and not a lot of people went into the cardiac room because generally speaking, the cardiac surgeons are kind of a different breed of people.
Okay.
In all my experience, they're kind of the hotheads. I don't know. Orthopods, they're all really nice, mellow dudes.
Mm-hmm.
Plastic surgeons, never met one I didn't like. Maybe
Right.
they're getting cash. Maybe they're getting paid. I don't know.
Right.
But cardiac surgeons generally tend to be the assholes.
Right. That's crazy how each department has like a different personality.
It's very different. And, Lauren, my daughter, she works in the operating room too, and she says the same thing.
Right.
The urologist, I don't know, anybody that wants to get that close, like a man that wants to be a urologist and have his face in
Deep in
another
that.
man's genitalia, they're just
Different.
different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So every department, every different specialty has their own breed.
Wow,
So
that's
I
crazy.
have been in cardiac, and it's interesting because the cardiac nurses also are their own breed.
Right.
And I tend to get along with the rough guys a little bit better than the softies.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of just hit home for me, and it's perfect for me.
Right.
Although cardiac surgery is not like what it used to be, because now patients get their cardiac stents in the cath lab, which is not a cardiac surgeon.
Right.
And then if something goes bad, then they come to us.
Mm-hmm.
So I like cracking open a chest.
That's like your meat and potatoes right there.
That's it. It's what gets me excited.
That's your jam. That's your jam.
Yeah, I could do that all day. As a matter of fact, getting back to the whole eye thing, I remember there was one day where my nurse, the charge nurse, said, "Cindy, I need you to go into room 2, which is the eye room. I need you to go into room 2 and just give a break."
Mm-hmm.
And I could feel my heart palpitating. I'm all, I don't want, that's the eye room. No. Like,
What's the eye room? Sorry.
eyeballs.
Oh,
I can't
eyeballs.
do
Oh,
eyeballs.
that's right. Yeah. That's
I
right.
don't like that. So I said, no. It's just a break. You're just going to go. All they need you to do is bring the patient in the room and get him hooked up to the monitors. Anybody can do that. And I looked at her square in the eye and I go, I swear to God, I am hoping right now for a crashing heart. I would much rather do a 7-hour case of a crashing heart than 15 minutes in the eye room.
Wow.
So the crashing heart is somebody that codes maybe over in the cath lab.
Okay.
And they bring them over to us. And it's a quick, let's get it going, prop them, crack open the chest, let's do this case. And sometimes they make it and sometimes they don't.
Right.
But that's how that adrenaline rush is.
You're an adrenaline junkie, huh?
In
In a sense.
Aren't we all?
Oh,
In
a little
our
bit,
own
for
little
sure.
way.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, if you do the same boring stuff day in and day out. But yeah, bring me a little bit of blood, maybe.
Right. I mean, that's kind of like, I'm sure you feel the same way, right? Where you get that hot call, your heart's pumping, you're like, let's go. Like, I mean, I remember responding to some calls. If there's a good song on, I crank that thing up in the squad and I just let it rip because I'm amping myself up, getting myself ready for that call. I'm sure you do the same thing.
Oh, dude, like talking to my therapist, she brought up the fact that like one of the things I might be struggling with is the fact that I don't get that adrenaline dump because like you do a lot of BS and monotony and whatnot, but when you get that like bad call or you get that fire or whatever it is, auto accident, things like that, you get that adrenaline dump.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now I don't have it, so she brought that up.
You don't even realize how much you love it until you don't have it.
Oh, completely.
And at the moment, like sometimes, for example, if they call me in, I'm on call and I get a call at home. Like the first thing I need to know is, who is the doctor? What are we doing?
Right.
And I can be called in for anything. Doctor so-and-so, we've got a crash in the cath lab. And it's like, oh, shit. There's so much to prepare before you can actually, but you don't have time to prepare. So I live in an area where traffic sucks.
Mm-hmm.
So I just get in the carpool lane and pretend I'm in a carpool.
Yeah, that's
And
what you got to do.
if I get pulled over, it's like, come on, dude.
I'm going.
Yeah.
I guarantee any police officer, if I pulled you over, I'd be like, Cindy, you just actually follow me. I'm going to take you there, and we're going to put lights and sirens on.
I
Let's go.
actually,
We
I
call
did.
those Cindyisms.
That's exactly a Cindyism. You're right, Carrie. I have a lot of Cindyisms. No, I actually, when I first started at the hospital I am at presently, they called me in. This is before we had cell phones.
Mhm.
We were using beepers still.
Right.
So I got called in for an emergency heart. I had only been there for a very short time.
Mm-hmm.
So I got in the carpool lane and I was cruising down, and I swear to God, I hadn't been in the lane for 50 yards maybe.
Yeah.
And of course, now the lights are going. I'm like, shit, this is not the time to pull me over.
Right.
So I get pulled over and I'm sitting there waiting. I'm like, come on, just finish the paperwork, call in the license, it's valid, get to the front, come over here and talk to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I opened the door, which probably is not a good thing to do.
Yeah.
And I'm a little bit frantic, and I'm telling this cop, I said, listen, I have an emergency. I've got to get to the hospital. Somebody is dying. I'm an open heart nurse. This patient is dying.
Yeah.
And he then approaches me and he says to me, where are you going? And I told him the hospital. And he said, what's their number? And I'm like, I don't even know, because I just started here like literally maybe
Right.
a week or two ago. So I pulled out my beeper and I showed him the phone number. And he calls the number to see if I was bullshitting him.
People have, but that's the problem.
Well, I get it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, all I'm thinking about is either write me a ticket or let me go.
Right.
So he did call the hospital. He got the front desk, and Elizabeth says, yes, sweetie pie, darling, she needs to come in. She's got an emergency. This guy gave me an escort with lights
Love
and said,
it.
just follow me right to the front door.
Right. I had a doctor I pulled over once. Actually, it was an FTO, which is the training program. And this doctor was on her cell phone, blew through a stop sign, almost hit a little girl on her bike. And I stopped her, and she just ripped into me. She goes, why are you stopping me? I have sick patients. I need to. I'm like, well, listen, doc, I understand, but you almost hit a little girl, so now you're going to wait. But she didn't tell me she was going to surgery. She didn't tell me any of that. She just said she had sick patients.
Oh, God.
And that was your reasoning, and you almost killed a little girl. I don't really care. So I can see his aspect of it, like, I'm going to double check, but good on that officer for getting you an escort to that hospital so you could help possibly save that person's life.
Yes. Well, I have a friend who's a perfusionist,
Mm-hmm.
and he actually lied to the cop.
Ooh.
It's kind of he did. He was actually coming from work and going home.
Oh,
And so-
okay.
He got pulled over in the carpool lane. So he lied and he said, listen, I have a crashing heart over at this hospital. I need to get there now.
Mm-hmm.
The cop did decide to give him an escort to the facility as well, to the hospital that he doesn't work at.
Oh, wow. Awkward.
But he gave him his drive all the way to the front door. So my friends, parked his car, went in the hospital, sat there for about 10, 15 minutes until he left.
Yeah.
Like, you don't do that. Like,
Right.
that's what gets people like me in trouble
Right.
when I really say I have an emergency.
Right. And I'm telling you, usually 9 times out of 10, if you tell the police officer, hey, I'm a doctor, I apologize, I should know better, they're probably, and 9 times out of 10, if you show any officer respect, they're probably going to let you go.
Well, and we have to go through this training every couple of years at the facility. And one of the things that we have to do is that active shooter training.
Unfortunately,
isn't that crazy?
It's a real thing, though, and sadly,
Ugh.
it's sad.
And we had a police officer say, if you ever get pulled over by any of us, just tell them that you are a nurse. We have a soft spot for you. He said, I would never write a nurse's ticket.
Same. I never would either. And case in point, I got brought to the hospital, and those nurses all dropped everything they were doing. All those doctors, they all took care of me. I was surrounded by like 20 of them. So my respect is always with you and all the doctors and stuff.
So this is a true story. Years ago when my husband and I had little kids,
Mm-hmm.
the daycare facility that we took our children to was on my way to the hospital. So I would take the kids and drop them off more often than not. But my husband and I would leave at the same time to go to work.
Mm-hmm.
We'd get to this one stop sign. I'd go right, he'd go left. Well, when I went right, I apparently went too fast. And
Right.
my husband saw a cop coming. And so he thought, oh, she's going to get busted. So my husband gets behind the cop and follows the cop with his lights, now with me and the kids. And I was going to the hospital for an emergency.
Right.
Was I going? No, I lied. I wasn't going for an emergency. I was going to work.
Mm-hmm.
So I get pulled over around the corner from the facility. My husband pulls up behind the cop. My husband gets out and he's telling the cop, give her a ticket, give her a ticket. And I'm telling my husband, I'm like, Paul, get the kids and get them to daycare. I need to get to the hospital.
Right.
Give her a ticket, give her a ticket. Okay. Paul takes the children and goes away. And I'm sure this cop's thinking, oh my God, if I get her a ticket, give her a ticket, she's going to go home. And her husband, as mad as he was, is going to beat the shit out of her.
Right.
So I'm not going to give her a ticket. I'm going to give her a lecture. And I told the cop, I said, listen, I'm going to the hospital. I've got to drop off the kids. There's
Right.
somebody in the emergency or in the operating room. And he said, the problem is everybody going through the hospital comes through this neighborhood. There's a school. You're going too fast.
Yeah.
I'm like, I get it. Kid you not. 10 days later, I get called in for an emergency heart. That was the officer that was going to write me a ticket.
And it was him as the patient.
He had a major heart attack.
Wow.
He had difficulty in the cath lab, but he was stable, but he needed the open heart surgery. So we got called in, and I remember looking at him, and I'm in the operating room, and I pulled my mask down, and I pulled my hat off, and I said, do you remember me now? And he looked at me, and I said, I was that nurse that you pulled over. And I told him with the kids and the husband, and he just could not believe that I was actually telling the honest truth.
Wow.
So I didn't lie to you. I was going to the hospital.
And here you are.
Now I'm going to save your life.
Oh, wow. And
You
did
saved
he live?
mine from my husband giving the ticket. And now I'm
Did he
here.
live?
He did live.
Amazing.
Yeah.
See, that's why.
I know. It's good karma.
Mm-hmm. So Carrie told me a story about you were, I believe, in surgery and you actually were beating someone's heart with your hand. Can you tell me about that?
Oh, yeah. It's just cardiac massage. So sometimes
It's super casual. It's just cardiac massage. Not, I just kept that person alive with my own hands.
Well, it was a heart patient that was having open heart surgery, and the patient can die on the table,
Yeah.
and you do everything. It's CPR, but
Yeah.
because the heart is right there, you don't have to crunch the chest. You
Right.
just
Oh my gosh.
you massage the
How does
heart.
it feel in your hands?
Like ground beef. I don't know.
Really?
It just
Yeah.
I don't even know how to
Ground
say it,
beef.
just-
That sounds like a really bad heart.
It probably was a really bad heart. It just like, I mean, tissue. It's just
Yeah. But it's just great. To like Carrie and I, that's astonishing. But to you, it's just another day in the office.
well, it makes CPR easy, right?
Right, 100%.
We were
100%.
Carrie and I were talking about CPR. How many have you had, Carrie,
Oh,
that live?
that lived? Listen, I was like the angel of death, all right?
Yeah. See, we had this conversation the other night. If you ever have a full code and you're going to die,
Mm-hmm.
try to die in the operating room,
Right.
because we have a really good success rate.
Oh, amazing.
There are not a lot of people that code that will die in our department.
Oh,
We are
same.
able to bring you back. Anesthesia is, first of all, we've got you on all the monitors to
Yeah.
begin with.
Yeah.
So we don't miss what happened
Mm-hmm.
to fix it. So maybe that's it. It's easier in the operating room. We don't have to figure anything out because we've already got your full run.
Everything's going. Yeah.
So, but CPR is, I'm like, how do you not bring anybody back, Carrie?
Yeah. Well, there's
Well,
a few things.
you got to think of like the situations we're in. Like, I mean, how long have they been down?
Right.
What caused it? I mean,
I had an overdose and I had to do CPR on a woman, and her 6-year-old was watching me. His own partner, he already dragged her out, and he was doing compressions. And I came and I relieved him, but there's nothing like doing compressions on somebody while their child watches you, and you just think like, I have a small kid at home too, so how can you do that? But we saved her, thank God. She
That would be awful.
oh, it's the worst. It's the worst because you think, it scarred me for my life. I couldn't imagine how that person felt.
Well, now in the hospital, they're encouraging, for example, in the ICU, if you were to have a code and the family's there, they encourage you not to get the family out. Like, try to keep the family present.
It's like a mental will to live. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, for sure. I could see that.
I don't know. Would you want to see your mom or dad getting?
No.
So we kind of did a lot of like the same thing, and it's it helps in the grieving process.
That's what they say.
No, it does, because I don't know. I understand it, after like dealing with it and being like, oh wait, we're not like bringing the family to another room. Like, we want that space where we can work and do what we have to do. We don't want, whatever else is going on to factor into that. But it definitely does affect that grieving process to see like, oh, okay, like they're doing what they have to do. Like this person just didn't make it, whatever it is. Like they see it all happen. And even like in the ER, they do bring family in to see it happen and whatnot. I don't know, like therapist stuff I don't understand.
I don't want to see
Right.
anybody doing CPR in my family.
Only thing I could think of is maybe that gives that person that will to live, because when I was shot and they were transporting me to the hospital, only thing I could think of was my son. And I kept telling myself, keep breathing for your kid.
He needs you.
Right. 100%.
Wait, what about your wife?
I'm telling you the truth. That's what I was thinking about was my son, is I need to keep breathing for my son. And I remember looking out the window, and I remember putting my hand on the window, and like it just slid down and there's just blood everywhere. And that's the only thing I could think about. And I think that was a portion of what saved me that day.
So
That's crazy.
real quick, I want to interject. So we're talking about loss and, depressing crap, but Cindy, you had brought up a story about Valentine's Day. I don't know if you're comfortable talking about that or not, but I think people might want to hear that.
Yeah. So as a nurse, I wish. So there's certain things as a nurse, like sometimes I just want to tell a patient,
Mm-hmm.
don't do it.
Right.
Don't do it. And if I have a patient that is talking to me and says, hey, so this is generic name. Let's just say the doctor's name is Dr. Smith. What do you think of Dr. Smith? And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, Dr. Smith is horrible.
Right. We can't say that.
I can't say that.
Right.
But I'm dying to tell them, like, this doctor is known as like the
XYZ.
doom of
Right.
death.
Right.
Don't do it. But I can't do it. So my generic answer is, Mrs. Jones, I'm sure you would never allow yourself to get this far if you were not comfortable with Dr. Smith as your doctor.
Mm-hmm.
So I had this one patient, and there's only, literally, there's 2 or 3 patients, maybe a year,
Mm-hmm.
that you remember.
Right.
Otherwise, they're just a patient that comes in. So this particular lady, she was probably in her 80s, sweet little lady. She'd already lost half a lung to lung cancer. And years later, they decided that they were going to, she had another spot on her x-ray.
Mm-hmm.
And so they were going to biopsy this. And in my mind, I'm thinking, she's 80 some odd years old.
Why?
If it's, let's just say it's cancer,
Mhm.
what are you going to do for her? Leave
Right.
it alone.
Right.
Like, we all got to go out with something.
Right.
So I so badly wanted to talk this lady out of surgery because it wasn't necessary.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, long story short, we went through the case, and this poor lady coded, and she ended up dying on my operating room table, which
Wow.
doesn't happen very often.
Right.
Usually we can get the patient closed and get him on epinephrine and transfer him to the ICU,
Mm-hmm.
and then you let him die in the ICU.
Right.
And the reason being is because they don't become a coroner's case. If they die in the operating room, they're automatically a coroner's case.
Right. And do a full investigation, XYZ.
It's
Yeah.
just not a good place to die.
Right.
So she died on the table. And when patients die on the table, and I had this little connection with this little old lady. I don't know why. But I'd like to go with the doctor
Mm-hmm.
to be with the family when they get this horrible news.
Right.
And I don't know if that's closure for me. I don't know why, but I'd
Probably.
like to do that. Because I'm no longer a nurse, I become human, and I've never had a case where I don't just bawl with the family.
Mhm.
It's just, some doctors, this is the news and that's the end of it.
Right.
But for me, I hold their hand, I cry with them. It's just not a show. This is just what I do.
Mm-hmm.
So it was Valentine's Day,
Oh,
and this little lady had died. So I spent some time making her as beautiful and normal as possible
right.
because every family then they want to see their family.
Yeah.
So when we were done with her, she looked like she was sleeping. We took her to the ICU, and I will never forget the husband being escorted by 2 of his children on his walker.
Oh,
And all he kept saying is, "My baby, my sweetheart, it's Valentine's." And it was their anniversary.
oh my God.
62 years. How could this happen? And I thought, how could this happen? Like,
Right.
why didn't I speak up and try to talk her out of it?
Right.
But it's not my place to talk her out of it.
Mm-hmm.
But had she said anything at the beginning about, "I'm just not sure I want to do this," the first time I have a patient say anything about, "I don't know if, I don't know if I want to do this," I will do everything in my power
To help you.
talk them
Yeah.
out of it
Yeah.
and say, "You know what? So what that you've had all these appointments, you did all these tests, the doctor wants to operate, and you're here today to operate. If you decide right now
No.
that
Right.
you don't want to do this, I'm going to tell your doctor that we're not going to do this."
Right.
Like, "Oh, but I've come this far. I'm going to waste his time." It's like, screw that.
It's your life. It's a matter of life or death.
Let's not do it.
Right.
Or I'll never forget that little lady.
Oh.
Or if we have a patient, where they say, "I just know something bad's going to happen. I just have this horrible feeling I'm going to die." Every patient that tells me, and I'm not kidding you, every single patient that I've had that has told me they're going to die in my operating room,
They die.
if we don't cancel that case, they've died.
Oh. It's like they know.
They know.
Yeah.
I had this one little lady, I'll never forget her either. Sister Mary, literally, sister from
Mm-hmm.
the Catholic Church.
Right.
And she showed up with 3 other sisters from the nun. And one of those ladies said to my patient, "Sister Mary, if you feel that you need to follow the light today, you follow the light. You go with God. You be with Jesus." And I'm like, hold on. Nobody is following any light on my shift.
Right.
We're not having that conversation.
Right.
"Oh, no. Let us pray." I'm like, you can pray all day. We'll wait. Take the time. But seriously, if you feel like you're going to die today, I would encourage you to cancel the case. No. If God wants to take me, then she died on my table.
Oh man.
Like, crap.
Right. And you did everything you could to try to save that person, and that's heartbreaking.
Try to talk him out of it.
Yeah. So we're getting a little short on time, but I want to ask you if there's any like bigger stories or anything that you want to talk about, and then I also want to ask you about like how you handle some of these cases and traumas that you've been through throughout your career.
So, you try to go home and try to brush it off.
Yeah.
Anytime somebody dies, that's horrible. Anytime somebody tries to die and you save them, that's fantastic. You go home feeling great.
Absolutely.
Exhausted usually, but
I couldn't imagine.
but great. It's just you kind of just have to go on every day and just hope for the best.
Yeah, for sure.
I seriously love what I do.
I can tell you're very passionate, and we need more people like you in that field.
Then breed some more 50-year-old nurses. I'm telling you, because those 25-year-old nurses don't work like that. Old. At my age, I should be slowing down, right?
Mm-hmm. You're just picking up.
Well, the problem is that the generations 25 to 35, Carrie, we were talking about this the other night. 25 to 35-year-old people, not just nurses, that group doesn't work like my generation was taught to work. It's
Right.
really frustrating.
Yeah.
You don't
sad.
like your assignment, call in sick.
Because you feel like that's where that career path is going, and that career path can't go down that road.
No.
It can't. It has to be more individuals or nurses like your mindset of, let's get it done.
Do your job.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I get in trouble because I get that young person that doesn't pull their weight, so I have to pull my weight and their weight,
Yeah.
and that's
It's
where
exhausting.
that's where my voice comes in.
So Cindy, how do you deal with your stressful portions of this job?
How do I deal with what?
The stressful portion of the job, or just the, seeing death constantly and the families as well. There you go.
A glass of wine.
Glass of wine keeps the
Two
sadness away.
Two glasses. Although I would never do that when I'm on call.
No,
right?
absolutely.
No,
Nope,
of course
I'd
not.
never.
Of course not. Did I tell you how much call I take in a week?
Oh, is that a lot?
Oh, well, Dee, if you're out there, thank you for joining a heart team. Yeah, it's literally 48 hours every other weekend.
Yeah.
Whereas it used to be more than that because there were 3 of us that were covering and 2 of you were on call at any given time.
Yeah.
And then I work 4 days a week, only 4 eighths. And of those 4 eighths, I was, until G joined our team, I was on call the 16 remaining hours.
Yeah.
4 to 5 days a week. So there's a lot of, that's the downside to my job.
Right.
Because you miss out on birthdays and holidays and, whatever.
Yeah. I know that pain, and I know Carrie knows that pain.
Yeah, this is so what you're getting paid. It's like at some point you have to decide, okay, so what that I'm getting paid? I just missed my kid's 6-year birthday party
Right.
at
You
the
can never
park.
get back.
So that's a downside.
Yeah.
Stressful. Go out in the yard, mow the lawn. Seriously, cut my plants. I've got a really beautiful yard because that's my happy space.
Yeah.
Take the dog for a walk. I've got a wonderful husband who
Yeah.
will sit at the kitchen table and let me bitch and moan and tell him about my day when he has no idea what I'm talking about.
But he sits there and listens anyways. That's awesome.
I mean, you probably get to do that too. You go home and you try
Yeah.
to explain what your day is, and your wife's looking at you like, that's great, honey."
Right. Right.
So try to leave it at work.
Yeah. It's hard
And
though.
It is hard for the most part. You can, but again, there's just those 1 or 2 cases that kind of stick with you every year.
Yeah.
It's like
Accumulate a little more.
you just add a little more sand to the bag, and it's
Yeah.
like, ugh.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and just getting ready for this podcast, it makes you think about all those cases and
Yeah.
kind of relive them. And every time somebody dies too, I've never ever gone to any therapist or anybody to talk about
Mm-hmm.
what's going on, but we do have, what do you want to call them? Counsel? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
The pastor, the priest, whoever might be at the hospital, they make that available. You can go talk to them anytime you want.
Good.
But anytime a patient dies, we have some kind of a debriefing.
Good, as they
If
should.
not that day, a couple days later to say, what could we have done differently?
Yeah.
And some of the cases are, the patient was a piece of poor protoplasm.
Yeah.
Piss poor protoplasm. They weren't going to live no matter what you did.
Yeah.
So what could we have done differently?
Before we close out, I do want to just bring up one thing, just because you were kind of talking about that. You talk about a lot of the, I don't want to say like the negatives, but recently you had to read a eulogy for someone that was close to you, that you worked with. And it seems like some of the things that she said about you kind of like brings that whole, everything you've done over the years, everything you've striven for. If it was for me to hear it, I think it would kind of like really bring some light to like what I've done. And how did that sit with you?
I don't want to get very specific.
I'm not talking like specifics, but like it seemed like they spoke very highly of you. No?
Oh,
Yeah, it seemed like she spoke very highly of you. And like, but like, was that
You're talking about that doctor.
that's
surgeon.
correct. I was
Yeah.
trying not to be too specific with it, but yes,
Yeah.
you just recently read a
So
eulogy.
we recently had a physician that is no longer working at our facility.
Okay.
And I was giving a speech about this person, and she was very private. Like,
Mhm.
just did not.
Not a
talk.
talker.
She knew me,
Mm-hmm.
but she never let me know her,
Right.
only at the surgeon level. And so when her sisters and I were talking, and these are sisters that I didn't even know existed,
Mm-hmm.
the first thing she said to me is, "Oh, you must be Cindy." And I'm thinking, "How the hell do you know me?"
Right.
And she said, "Oh, because my sister had said, first of all, you look like Princess Di, and so I was able to pick you out of the crowd."
Right.
Oh, seriously? And then she told me all these things that this particular doctor had told her about me.
Wow.
And I thought, wow, like, she never mentioned all these sisters or brothers that she had.
Yeah.
But yet, really? You know about me? I thought, I guess I've done a good job.
Right.
So obviously, at some point, I have been the topic at somebody's kitchen dinner table.
Yeah.
And so it actually made me feel like, wow, I don't just do a job.
Yeah.
Somebody appreciates what I did for them to make their case
Yeah.
that much better, or that I worked really hard to save that patient that you tried so hard to kill.
Right.
That's a bad way to put it, but like, it's just, it's a good feeling as a nurse to go home and know
Right.
that you're not just
Appreciated.
going through. Yeah, it's how does it make you feel when somebody tells you, "I don't know you, but I know about you because I've heard a lot of stories."
Right. And Carrie and I have talked about this numerous of times where it's no one ever tells you when you're doing a good job. Only time you hear from people is when you're doing something wrong.
Exactly.
And I think that needs to change in your field, my field, his field, or in all
In
fields in
life.
general in life, where you acknowledge those people because it means the world to you in a sense, right? Because I when we hear good things about the podcast, you're like, you know what? Maybe we aren't just embarrassing ourselves in front of a mic and talking about our emotions. And you're like, you know what? We are making a difference, and good for that. Not good. Good for you that you heard those things, because that makes a world of a difference to you. I'm sure that meant the world to you.
It did, especially coming from this family with this particular surgeon.
Mm-hmm.
That for so many years I've worked with this doctor, feeling like there was never that personal connection.
Yeah.
But yet, I'll tell you, she was the doctor that she was so private, but she was the one person when we lost Charlotte, my granddaughter.
Mm-hmm.
When I came back to work right after that, there was a card that was on my locker, and it was from her.
Wow.
And she gave a shit about people.
Yeah.
She never really showed it.
Right. But in her different ways, she did.
In
her
like,
own way.
Getting a sympathy card from her was so unexpected, but so beautiful at the same time. So yeah, when somebody acknowledges you, and maybe that's what we should all take away from everything, is like, try to pick out the good things, point them out, and give people accolades rather than
100%. Instead of bringing everyone down all the time.
Yeah.
You know what? Before we close out this episode, I want to say that, tell someone they're doing a good job. If they're doing a good job, take the 2 seconds that it takes to tell that person, thank you, I appreciate you, thank you for all you do, because it actually could mean the world to that person, especially if someone's going through some mental health issues or some crisis. You could be the difference between that person taking their own life and not. So,
no, I agree with you.
I want to tell you, you're a fucking rock star. And I meant to say fuck on that one, because you are amazing. And I'll never look at a fridge the same way and not think of someone's leg of being in the fridge. But you are amazing. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for all the hard work you've put in through the years. And I know you still have some time left with your career, but thank you so much.
Well, thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming on. Gary, you got anything else?
No, we're very glad to have you. It was a blast.
But
Glad-
love you, Carrie.
I'm glad you made it out here for this. So
Yeah.
there's no
Glad I could be
long
here.
travel. We love you, and we'll leave it up to the viewers to decide, I guess.
Yeah, you guys like, subscribe, share. We can't get any further without you guys. We appreciate you guys listening. We appreciate Cindy for coming on, and we got more to come. Take it easy, guys.